Okay, so environment specifically impacts your growth because your belief system is directly linked to your environment. So I'll give you an example. If you're stuck with, for example, like we see these cliche things, you're the byproduct of 5 people that you hang out with the most. And one of the reasons you're that byproduct is to shape and form your environment in the sense of what their beliefs are, how high they've gone, what they are doing on a day-to-day basis. These things rub off on each other. And one of the key things is in order to be incredibly successful, in order to evolve into a more conscious human, you have to constantly push the surface of what's possible to the next level, because that's how the human body is basically created. So we have senses like eyes, ears, nose, and mouths that used to basically, the way our body is basically set up is that once it's experienced something better, it typically has a very hard time, almost like a withdrawal, going backwards and just enjoying something less. So for example, if you are always eating at Red Lobster, you might think that's really good seafood. But then you go to a real seafood restaurant and you're like, holy crap, this is amazing. Now Red Lobster doesn't taste as good anymore because you've had this other much better thing. And it's the same thing with everything else. Like, you may not want a Ferrari, but when you drive a Ferrari, you're going to be like, oh, I can see why my Honda is not adequate or not exciting anymore. The argument is, until you experience it, basically your body and your capacity as a human isn't elevated. And so experience plays a significant role in that. Now, environment plays a significant role in experience because based in the environment you're in, your belief system is triggered, pushing you to experience better things. And I'll give you an example of this when I was very young. So I lived in an apartment complex with my mom that was a single mother, and she wasn't very we weren't wealthy at all, right? We were on the poverty side of things, and she worked a job and she did whatever she had to for us to survive. But one thing that my mom did really well bringing me up was that she guaranteed that I was never in a bad environment. Meaning, even though we had probably the only studio, like not even a 1-bedroom apartment, like in that entire 500 apartment complex, it was in one of the wealthiest apartment complexes. So when I would get out of my studio, which I didn't even have my own bedroom, I would be faced with individuals that were dressed well, cars that looked nice in the parking garage, individuals who went to work. So this idea that like this is life was not like the ghetto is life because we had a bigger apartment, or like people are fighting outside, or like drugs are an option. So like the environment was always, this is what societal success looks like. And so being raised in that environment, I didn't know, and I didn't have this mindset that like, this isn't for me later. It was actually all I knew, that this is a goal to achieve or a place to go next. But there are a lot of people who are in environments like in their surroundings, like maybe their friends are losers, their friends are always going out, getting drunk, getting high, whatever it is, or they live in a very poverty area and they're okay with it because they feel like it's the best they can afford because they wanted a bigger house in a crappier neighborhood versus a smaller house in a better neighborhood. And what occurs is the things in your environment shape your belief system. So ideally, these people are basically looking at their future every day when they walk out of their house, and it doesn't look that exciting, and it's not something to strive for. And on the other hand, I was looking at my future, and while it was further from where I was, because again, people had very expensive apartments and we had a studio and we were renting and they owned their apartments, there was a significant difference in the fact that I believed all of that was for me. Many parents give their children this box and they say, hey, like, this isn't for you. Like when I'm at the gas station with a Bugatti, all the kids run up to my car. And what ends up happening is some parents come up and they're like, oh my God, is it okay if my kid takes a photo with the car? Is it okay if my kid looks at it? And yet there's some parents that come in and pull their kid and they go, this isn't for you, don't touch the man's car. Get back in the car. This is basically creating an environment where they idolize the Bugatti versus an environment where they negate wealth, right? Like immediately. So one is like, the kid is like, this is amazing, this is normal, this is passion, this is greatness, and another kid is like, this is the enemy. And so this type of environment shaping from a very young age leads to people using their environment or basically being used by it, putting themselves in situations, because that kid growing up, the one that negated that Bugatti, basically has a negative quotation of wealth his whole life. And as he goes on, it says wealthy people, he's not interested in networking, navigating that. He's just interested in basically creating a separation. And he becomes one of those haters on the internet that's like always like, whatever, this doesn't happen for some of us. Or some of us live here. You're lucky. Your parents bought you this. Like whatever they need to create to basically create a distinction between themselves and what they consider the enemy at that point. I think one thing that I always said about us when we were poor versus other people that I see today that are, poverty is okay. It's just, I always say poverty is a state of mind more than it's a reflection of your wallet. However, your mind, basically based on its level, can't create wealth, right? So it starts in the mind, then it reflects in the wallet over time, even if at the moment someone's watching this and saying, I'm poor now, but I'm doing what I need to do to get on the right path, right? For my mom, the one thing I think we had growing up, regardless of having money or not, was class. And class was very important for my mom because my mom was always the type of individual that respected society and respected others' perspectives of her. So she was always a classy woman despite not having much. And I think that came from her upbringing because she was on the wealthier side growing up and then lost it all. And it went downhill because she had to move multiple countries because of a revolution. So I think she already had these roots in upper class. And she basically didn't let that get to her head when she lost the money and the ability to maintain that, And I've always said this was reflected also in my career growing up, because when I started working and I had to buy suits, the argument was people would tell me, well, you go to Target, you go to Walmart, you can find a cheap suit, like $150. But what I did is my mom would push me to go to Macy's and look at $400 suits. And she would use coupons to get them to the same price. And then I would spend an extra $100 to just tailor them so they looked better, so they look like $2,000 suits. A lot of people don't see that value in investing that extra $100 in how their suit looks on them. Because to them, they're wearing a suit. They're not representing themselves. And I think this is a big difference between me, and I think just in my upbringing, that was something that I've learned from my mom, is you're always a representation of yourself. And if you're not paying attention to that, then that's something that's going to bite you in the ass later. And for me, it's like, we say, a lot of people on the internet say, well, Mark Zuckerberg wears a t-shirt, or this guy wears this, or a hoodie. They represent themselves because of their wallet. They're already known. They don't need representation. They don't need a stigma of what they drive that defines who they are, right? Their status isn't defined by what they drive. Everybody on the planet knows Mark Zuckerberg can afford any car he wants. Anybody on the planet knows he can afford any airplane he wants or any yacht he wants, right? Like there's no question about it. He doesn't have to present an image of that at any point because he's already recognized based on legacy, based on what he's done. And a lot of people don't realize that this is the same thing for every human, but we all do it in stages. Like in stages, meaning we might be in a business where we're not as famous. Maybe we're not on the internet. Maybe we're an oil executive that can make $10 million a year, right? Working a job. Nobody knows who we are. They might not even know we're number 2 at Google, or number 3, because the average person wouldn't understand that. But that guy driving a McLaren, like P1 or something crazy, like an F1 or something, would make people wonder, who are you? Why are you here, right? So it's everything you do, from your clothes to the way you present yourself, is a representation of you. I mean, most fraudsters and poor people typically want Gucci clothes and things like that to create an image too, right? They're like, I'm rich. That's what I'm trying to portray. Now, what happens is money knows money, but the difference isn't just what you buy, is how you wear it and how you hold yourself in that outfit. It's not about the $2,000 suit. It's about a cheap tailored suit versus a cheap untailored suit. And also, if you work out, if you keep yourself in good shape in that suit, you look better, right? You portray a better image of balance and control over your life versus the sloppy guy whose belly's out and belt doesn't fit, and outfits from Target. Just tells you that he's so confused, he's probably not going to get anywhere